I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast. I have my guest, Ben Nader from Recruiter Empire. And the reason why I'm excited about bringing Ben on is because it has been like mass chaos in the recruiting world. There's been layoffs nonstop. The tech world is getting hit. And unfortunately, the recruiting function has been one of the most impacted areas within the space. And it's, a time to look for a new job. It's a time to also look for opportunity. And I want to bring Ben in because I remember when I actually got the call that I was getting let go. It was on my first vacation in years, my first vacation day in years. I was in France enjoying a vacation, and I got the call saying, unfortunately, this is a business decision. You were one of the best recruiters we had, but we're going to have to let you go.
So
and
rough.
I, drank some wine
Yeah.
and then
As you do.
Yep. I mean, you have to in France, drank some wine. And then we made the decision to let's just go and do it ourselves. Let's just start our own company. And Ben Nader has mentored numerous people into launching their own recruiting firms. I think his, your students have had about $30 million in revenue.
Yeah. Over 1,000 students have been through Recruiter Empire programs, and they have collectively generated over 4 years that we've been, doing Recruiter Empire, generated $30 million in climbing in revenue for their own agencies, collectively, which is awesome, because we want that impact. We want to, just like you jumped into the game, like, hearing that call that you're ousted and, you're like, I'm doing it myself. Forget it. I'm done. Let's go. And I love that. Like, because it's like you have that parity right there, right? Where it's just like the downside and the upside. It's like, and that right there is like, I'm not going to interview you because this is your podcast, the Elite Recruiter Podcast. This is your podcast, right? But, it's like, boom, how quickly did you take a negative to a positive? Like, that's crazy. It's awesome. And I love that.
And, that's why I want to bring you on. Like, I know, not everybody can like jump in and start their own firm, but like for the people that can, why should they start their own recruiting firm right now?
I love that question. So the answer that I want to give you is that, why should someone start a recruiting firm in general? They should always start a recruiting firm. Recruiting and staffing it's one of the best businesses to be in ever. I think you and I, and a lot of people probably listening, or maybe not, know a lot of reasons why. But right now, in specific, right, there's a whole, multitude of reasons as to why. One of which would be, the current layoff scenario that's kind of panning across the entire spectrum, right? Hitting the tech industry pretty hard, other industries kind of hard, but still hard. I'm linked with tons of people on LinkedIn, and there's people pinging my inbox, saying, "Hey, just got let go from eBay last week." Like a woman that I know, and it's eBay, Facebook, it's, you know what I mean? It's literally all these guys. And so, there's an opportunity there though, right? So where there's, chaos or things that, don't look so great, there's always opportunity in that. And I think it's like a whole Warren Buffett thing, right? When everybody's running this way, you run that way. You know what I mean? Like you do the opposite, or think the opposite, right? Because it's not, an exact, like everyone getting laid off isn't going to go start a recruiting agency, right? Like you. But you know what I mean? It's a great opportunity currently for a lot of people to jump into the game and have a feast, because it's there to be had, because there are companies hiring and there is a lot of talent out there that's being let go.
I mean, it's one of the things, like if you hop on LinkedIn, everything is just the feed of getting laid off. But if you actually look at the economic numbers, at least for America, like a lowest unemployment on history, many companies are still like, I don't want to say like begging for people, but they're begging for people. It's a bit of a skills mismatch. And a lot of these companies like from what I've seen and talked to, like they still need help finding people. It's just, the world that we live in LinkedIn says a different story.
Right. Totally. And, one of the things that somebody told me the other day, the way that they phrased it, it was like, when you have the internet, you have access to infinity people. You know what I mean? Right. So if you're on LinkedIn or if you're a recruiter and, you start an agency and you're in Texas, right? That does not at all inhibit you from working with candidates and companies in Silicon Valley, right? Like, you know what I mean? Or Florida or New York or wherever. So, we have a nationwide, the capacity of the recruiting and staffing industry is so massive, especially because it's digital, it's remote, and, you have that capability to be literally anywhere. For you, it'd probably be in France, right? From everything I know about you, you'd probably be in France, just hanging out with your wife, sipping some lovely wine and some laptop lifestyle recruiting on the side, right?
I mean, that's what we've done in multiple trips to France last year, and we're planning on multiple trips to France this year, and
love it.
I know, like, we don't take time off for vacation, but we are working. It's like our lifestyle takes us places.
Yep.
And for us, like, recruiting has given us that gift.
Totally. Because it's a lifestyle business, right? And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand, I think a lot of people have been thrown into this ism that it's work-life balance, work-life balance, work-life balance. Well, when you're an entrepreneur, and when, specifically a recruiter, you don't exactly have work-life balance. You have a lifestyle business, right? So you've got to do certain things at certain times, and there are requirements, but you have a lot of latitude and kind of flexibility on kind of most of that. You know what I mean? Of course, you got to do your business development. You got to follow up with candidates, and obviously do your headhunting and whatnot, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you do get to choose a good portion of when you do that and how much you do that and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, before we keep on diving into that, let's go into your story a little bit. How
Sure.
did you get involved in the recruiting world?
So, the last 9-to-5 corporate America 9-to-5 I had was working at Microsoft here in lovely Seattle, Washington. And so that was the last 9-to-5 I ever had. And for a very good reason. The place is boring as hell to work at. And I can say that I don't work there anymore. And I could probably, you could probably say that about your place of employment as long as it's not on the internet, maybe to your boss. But long story short, in this particular role that I was in, I had about 6 hours of free time every single day. And just did about maybe 2 hours of work a day. That's all I had to do. It wasn't my choice. Like, it wasn't like I was choosing to just kind of kick back for 6 hours out of the 8-hour day. It was like, no, like there was literally nothing to do. So, I was in the Bing Maps, department on a specific team that dealt with, some very boring stuff I won't even talk about. But basically, long story short, just the boredom, and the absolute, abyss that I saw, led me towards this, concept of me already knowing that I was an entrepreneur because I had gone through, these other things that I'd done previously, e-commerce and, flipping, used electronics and refurbished stuff on Amazon, eBay, like all that, way back when, and trying multiple other business avenues and this and that way before, I was, there at Microsoft in 2017. And ultimately I kind of came to this conclusion where recruiting just came to my mind. And ultimately it was like a little bit of because I had a few buddies that they were recruiters at Amazon. Some were at Microsoft, some were actually at Aerotech and stuff like that. Right. Speak of the devil, but,
old stomping grounds.
yeah, right. Yeah. So shout out to Aerotech. So, I was like, wow, these guys are, recruiting, right? And that's an interesting business model. And so I just kind of thought to myself, well, I could do that business model by myself. Why don't I try to pick up some clients? And so there I was, in my 6-hour free time, right? Literally on my phone, like not joking, on my phone, thumbing through Facebook business pages for like plumbers, plumbing companies, skilled trade, accounting firms. I mean, I was looking at aerospace manufacturing companies, because we also have Boeing here, right? So there's a lot of subsidiaries. So lo and behold, I got a client. Somebody pinged me back, and then I was like, cool, let's take this to email. So we took it to email. That turned into a phone call. So I got my first client. Proof of concept for me was everything about this story. So when I, as an entrepreneur, see a pathway, right, and I'm enjoying it, I'm like, this is cool. Like they have a need. I'm going to go find, the person that they need, which was a receptionist, for that client, right? That's all it was, somebody to answer the phones. And, I fulfilled the need in like less than a week with, this was just like my first placement, right? So I just threw out some Indeed ads and, made it happen, but it was also like $5,000, in my pocket. So, there I was making a $55,000 salary, right? And in a really short period of time, less than half of that, I was able to do my first $100,000. And I was like, okay, so I'm making double the salary in half the time you're paying it to me. Guys, I'm out of here. I'm going to, it no longer made mathematical sense for me to be there. And so then I took recruiting full time. Took my agency, Seattle Search Solutions, which ultimately ended up serving the greater Pacific Northwest companies in Oregon, Idaho, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of where I, drew my lines, if you will, for business development. But yeah, that's what got me into it. And that's what kind of, kept me in,
And one of the things that I've been telling people, and, I've been trying to do it myself, is I think 2023 is the year that you share what you're doing. Like, go out there, share as you're building whatever you're building. Mm-hmm. And you've done an amazing job with that. I think you've shared something like 700 videos on recruiting.
It's 600 or 700. I don't know the exact. I think it's closer to 700. Yeah. And we were kind of chatting back and forth about this right beforehand, but I don't go back and count them all, because I just make a lot of content because I love making content around what I'm doing. And that's what I did. Yeah. I shared, early on, I started sharing right away, like, late 2016, right when we were going into 2017, I was sharing, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do YouTube. And so I was like, let me vlog about everything I'm doing right now. Let me vlog about this new business that I'm doing. And so I started doing how-tos and here's what I'm doing. And let's talk about, recruiting and this and that. And it just became this whole thing. And then like 700 videos later, it's, Recruiter Empire and then the Facebook group. And it's what I think has become kind of like a really fun movement for me, right? At least for me, right? To be able to help impact a lot of people, with what we're doing. So it's really, really fun.
That's awesome. So anybody that's looking at like, starting a firm right now, what advice would you give them?
So I would say the first thing they need to figure out is, are you really an entrepreneur? And this is comical because subconsciously, for whatever reason, or maybe it's just totally intentional, I can't tell you, but I loop back around because whatever YouTube video that I've done, like that particular day, someone brings up something that ties right to it. So today's video is ask yourself Ask yourself these questions before you dive into entrepreneurship. Basically, that's what it is. So my big thing for people is to literally ask themselves like a handful of questions, right? And find out, are you really an entrepreneur, right? Like, is this, something that you can actually, take on and do and take it the distance, right? Because, everybody else is just, a wantrepreneur. If you have an LLC, you're like, I'm in business. Well, show me your P&L, right? Show me your profits and losses and show me the business you've done. Like, other than that, you're not in business. But the advice I would give to somebody is like, nothing is get rich quick. That must be understood very well. Like in business in general, and definitely recruitment for sure. Like I could guarantee you, like, like by the basis of your actual contracts with your clients, like you will not get paid, for, a couple weeks, right? At least, if you're lucky, if they're, an on time paying client. But, yeah, I'll give that advice. I'll say you need to make sure you're an entrepreneur and that you really want to take it the distance. You need to really kind of, jump into it and get around the right people. Right. So I did a clip on TikTok yesterday talking about how I ultimately built, my it was really about how making your first 7 figures really is what it was. Because that's a milestone. It's a big deal. Making your first 6 figures is a big deal. You know what I mean? Making your first 50 grand, right? Like for
your first placement.
Your first placement for, right? That's a win. I tell everybody there's 6 wins in the process. Like getting even a positive email is a win, So ultimately, the advice really comes back to, just having that fortitude, making sure you have it, and then getting around the right people, right? This is what I talked about on that TikTok. How did I build, a 7-figure company? Well, mentors, man, like, got around the right people, talked to the right people, was, invested in, a network of people that were doing the things I wanted to do and being the stupidest person in the room, like, for a really, really good period of time until you're on par with those that, that are, showing you what they're doing. And then you need higher grade people where you can still be the stupidest person in the room, right? Because that's all, that's, one thing that you want to be. I think you would probably agree. You always want to be, the stupidest person in the room.
I was going to say, like, one of the things that actually helped me out so much, because when you jump into your own recruiting company, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You're just, it's you, it's the phone, it's you and the computer. But I found a community of other, solo search firm owners and started learning.
Totally. And was that the Herc?
It was Herc. It was a few other different groups that I found on Facebook, and really just kind of like lurked in the community for a while. But there's just between Recruiter Empire, Herc, talent sourcers, you name it, there's so much gold within Facebook communities that if I had a challenge, somebody else has already gone through it.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Big shout out to David Stephen Patterson, right, in the Herc. Amazing community of people, right? Just epic. And you're right. In those communities and, in Recruiter Empire, same thing. If there's a question, if there's a challenge, if there's you name it, there's somebody that's going to raise their hand in the form of a Facebook comment to your post, and they've been in the business for 50 plus years, or whatever it is, right? I'm not going to age anybody and drop a name, but there's really solid people out there like Rich Rosen, right? He's known as the $1 million biller to a lot of people. And so, right. Yeah. So Siri thought that too, apparently.
I was just like,
So like, you're going to get an answer right away, lickety split, because that person has been there, done that, got the t-shirt 7 to 10 times before you've even thought about asking the question. You know what I mean?
Yep.
and you're just going to know from the get-go what to do.
So I like summing this part up. Like if you were looking at jumping into your own firm, find an online community to be part of.
Yeah, find a community of like-minded individuals. You want, what a lot of people refer to as your board of directors around you. Keep your circle small, your actual circle of people that you interact with and that you are very close with, but keep access to a large community of people that are ultimately mentors and guides,
Some great advice. So looking at starting a firm, what are some of the biggest challenges that somebody might face?
Biggest challenge off the bat that someone's going to face is finding your first client, right? So
any advice on that?
Yeah. So put yourself out there and do a whole lot of outreach, like send a whole ton of emails. If you're a phone person, dial a whole ton of phone numbers, right? Like talk to as many people as possible. I did a YouTube video about building, $1 billion network, like how you should do that and why you should do that, right? Because it is going to be so damn important for you at a certain, period in time for you to get clients like that. You know what I mean? Where someone who knows someone or whatever it is, but also at the same time, starting out by just reaching out and not being afraid to reach out, right? I think most people fear things like, rejection, like, they're just going to reject my email, right? Or they're going to reject my phone call, or, they're going to call me names or whatever it is. Welcome to business, right? One of my greatest mentors always says this when I talk to him all the time. He'll just say, "Welcome to business, man." And he runs a multi-million-dollar company, and not in the recruiting space, but in the career coaching space. And and he's been there, done that a handful of times. Sold a staffing agency for a good amount, and always welcome to business. You know what I mean? So you just got to be ready for that, right? So I think it really circles back to that. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Like, are you ready to take this stuff on? It's not a walk in the park, but at the same time, it's worth it, right? It's really, really worth it. I wouldn't trade my trajectory for anything. The way everything has gone and the way that, I've landed where I am and, all of that, I'm happy with that.
I'm with you on that too, because, I can't tell you how many years, every single year at some of the companies I worked at, they'd make the announcement on December 1st to prepare for layoffs. Every single year. So like the first few years that me and my wife were together, I was just super nervous through Christmas. Like I didn't want to do anything, didn't want to spend any money because I'm like, am I going to survive this round of layoffs again?
Sure. Right.
And, now I can pick up the phone and send some emails and, do some networking. And, it's, I think for me, it's the control factor of my family's future.
Absolutely. I couldn't co-sign and agree like any more than what I can tell you, but I can add something as well, right? I'll say this, when you get into business for yourself and you are now working for yourself, you are your own livelihood, right? When I did that for me, I have never worked harder in my life until I started working for myself, right? Because the realization hits you in the face like a brick that it's who's got to do the work? Oh shit, it's me. You know what I mean, right? But that's also comforting, right? In this weird way. It's also, whoa, this is, flipping the tables, right? But at the same time, it's also comforting because you do have that control, right? And then everything at that point is just inputs and outputs, right? KPIs. How many emails are you going to send today? Like you were saying, right? Hey, I'm just going to send some emails and we'll take care of this real quick. I just need two, 3 clients and we're going to have a great Christmas, honey. Don't worry. Like we'll be great, especially when you get your craft down, right? And that goes back to having the right mentors and, people that, guide you and things like that and show you the ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely great advice on that. So going to flip gears. Kind of jumping into some of the questions I ask like everybody.
Sure.
For what has been a book that has had a huge impact on your career?
So, this is actually a very deep question, right? But I'm going to answer it with this one because it's just to me it's the most recent, and honestly, it's had the most profound effect as of currently because of the things that are being now implemented in my company, and that is Alex Hormozi, and the book is $100 million offers. That is the book by Alex Hormozi. If anyone doesn't know Alex Hormozi, you should absolutely follow the dude on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever. But just love like his business strategy, philosophy, mindset, just the concepts and things like that. Because I totally nerd out on that, right? And you have to, when you're in business, you have to nerd out on, things like KPIs or, creating, offer structure, and stuff like that people will just love. And it transcends all industries and businesses and everything, what he talks about. So yeah, that would be the book.
Yeah, I absolutely love that book. And it's like working on implementing some of those ideas into recruiting because he talks about making the offer so good that the companies come to you and breaks it down like so many ways, but yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of people probably expected me to say like a recruiting book or something, like something that's like recruiting secrets, or whatever. But no, it's not, maybe an honorable mention would be like, how about, the 4 agreements.
Okay.
Right. Some of these books that, don't have like a direct correlation to, that's not recruiting or that's not, business. Well, take a macro perspective and you'll find out that it very much is,
Is there a quote that has had an impact on your life or business?
Yes. And this is actually in the same vein of the book that I just mentioned. And this is a quote by Alex Hormozi. So yes, I'm a huge fanboy of Alex Hormozi. The quote is, entrepreneurship is about acquiring skills, beliefs, and character traits. That's the quote. And the reason I love the quote is because it very much reflects kind of the idea that I love, which is the idea that I love, live by, and teach, which is that you need to understand who you are before you get into something, right? And that's really entrepreneurship. And like, understanding, are you there yet? And, are you going to be able to acquire these, beliefs, skill sets, character traits? And a slight spin-off of that is something that I heard from some talk that I was at. And basically the whole concept was like, the guy was talking about, figure out who you are, right, today, now, and don't let that person change whether you have, $5 in your bank account or $100 million in your bank account. Like nothing should change. You shouldn't, become a different person, just because of, monetary circumstances or otherwise, but it's those personality traits and characteristics. And that's why I love that quote, really,
Awesome. Phenomenal. Yeah. Here's actually one of my favorite questions. that I just love asking everybody.
Sure.
With everything that you know now, the experiences that you've gone through, if you can go back and talk to yourself early in your career, what would you tell yourself for advice?
I would start off by saying start earlier. Okay. I would say fear nothing. Fear nothing at all. Right? Because knowing what I know now and being where I am now, had I not taken certain roads and made certain moves and pivots out of fear or things like that, or out of, you know what I mean, whatever it is, right? I would never be where I am right now. And I'm very satisfied with, my trajectory, and what some people would call, certain levels of success. I call it, it's an ever evolving, trajectory. There's never a destination success that I'm here, you never make it, right? It's always the journey, but don't, I would give myself this advice to start earlier. If something comes into your mind, right, and you're wanting to start a recruiting agency, start looking for clients. Just start doing it, right? Like, start doing the thing earlier, way earlier. I mean, because you and I both could share the same kind of, war stories. Like, man, if I had 10 years earlier, let me calculate that number right there. That kind of stuff. Or let me calculate the lifestyle freedom, and what I would have not had to do. But I'm a firm believer that everything happens on time, happens for you, right? It's not happening to you. It's happening for you. And so, that kind of diverts from the question, but the advice is basically start earlier, fear nothing. There is nothing to fear, just do it, do the things, right? You're going to get rejected. You're going to have people doubt you. You're going to have, lots of people that are confused about what you're doing or whatever it is. That could be random people, family, friends, whatever. Like, none of that matters though, at the end of the day, like, you can't please everyone. Just anything along those lines about fear and starting earlier and just like going for what you in your heart of hearts really see as the thing that you want to do. Go after it ASAP. Right. And I'm not trying to go to a place where we're like talking about the, like on your deathbed type thing, or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to go to that place. I'm just trying to say, like, look, like, just do the damn thing, like, and oftentimes, right, speaking back to a younger self, right, I'm 35. So like, it's all relative, whatever you want to, however you want to see it. But like, long story short is just like, time is, the only thing that we cannot get back. Right. So just try these things, do these things, and, also never settle. That'd be another thing, right? Never settle. If you're unhappy, it is probably your fault. I know that's ruthless, right? But I believe that to be true. If you're unhappy in your circumstances or scenario, it is very likely that it is your fault. And just let that sink in for anyone that's listening or watching this. But the long story short is that you have the power to change that, right? That's the whole, moral of that, blunt statement, right?
Definitely great advice. Well, Ben, I'm excited about bringing you in, and thank you for sharing with the listeners. Because one of the things,
of course,
I was thinking about starting my own firm. Like, I worked at Aerotech, which is a giant multi-billion-dollar organization way back when. And you see this gigantic organization like a Korn Ferry or an Aerotech, and you're like, how do I compete about that? How do I start that? Like, I myself probably overcomplicated it way too long. Thinking I needed all these things when it's a lot of work, but it's at the end of the day, it's a simple business. So definitely thank you for sharing with the listeners, on, helping make a change if they want to take this route. And even if it's not for now, like, it's always something to have in the back of your head. Like, you're a recruiter, like, you've helped build out some amazing teams. Like, it's one of the things I've been talking with recruiters recently. It's like, you need to understand the value that you bring to the table. Like, in the GovCon space, you built out a $500 million program that would not exist if it wasn't for you. The sales team wouldn't be there making hundreds of millions of dollars of sales if you didn't put them together. That product team that built that amazing product, the product wouldn't be there without the recruiters. So
Absolutely.
remember that the value you add, and, if it's the time, chase that value for yourself.
Mic drop. I mean, like, so true. So true. And, if I could echo anything about what you just said right there, is that, too many people overcomplicate it. Right. And it's just, I actually had the luxury of, not knowing squat, right, when I started. So, I just kind of walked through and was just, like, oh, you need this? Okay, cool. Yeah. Here's an invoice and what, right. But just, fear nothing. Don't overcomplicate it, and just, move, just, or at least, like you said, keep it in the back of your mind, and I think so many people have it already in the back of their mind, or, at the forefront of their mind. And it's just about taking that leap, which is really just a step forward. It's, it's not as big a leap as people think it is.
It isn't. And before I, let you go, it was like one of the things when I was finally an internal recruiter, I started seeing these big checks going out to these companies, and, I didn't realize I'm probably better than them. Yeah. And I saw those checks going out. I'm like, all right, well, I'm happy and safe here. But yeah, Well, Ben,
right.
Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd love to share with the listeners?
No. I think hopefully for the listeners, we covered a lot of ground. I am absolutely privileged and have a lot of gratitude for you inviting me on the Elite Recruiter podcast. It's always a great time chatting with you. And I got YouTube and stuff. I got to get a podcast going on, man. Then I'll have you on. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. It's been an honor. It's been great. Always a fun time.
Well, Ben, thank you for coming on, and for the listeners, until next time.